Hi again. In this video, we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting rational expressions. Adding and subtracting fractions are, you would think adding and subtracting are easier than multiplying and dividing, but it turns out it's not. Okay. The key here to all these problems is finding a common denominator. You have to have a common denominator, a like denominator, in order to combine fractions, and that's what makes these problems difficult. Let's go back to like a middle school math problem. Okay, so no x's, no expressions, no nothing, but understand we're going to get into stuff that looks like this or that looks like this. Okay, it's coming. But if I did this with just numbers and I said, what's 2/3 plus 4/5, you would say, well, the first thing I have to do is convert these to the same number on the bottom. Okay, and so I would say, what's the smallest number that 3 and 5 both go into? And that would be 15, right? And so I would say, okay, I've got so many 15ths here and so many 15ths here. The second thing you would understand is, and that you know by now, is that that means I don't have 2 15ths and 4 15ths. It's not that easy, right? The number of 15ths I have changes as well. And so I would say, well, how did I get the 3 up to 15? I multiplied this both top and bottom by 5, right? And so really I have 5 times 2 is 10. And over here, it would take 5 times 3 to get 15, so I got to multiply 4 times 3 as well, which means this is 12. And now I can see that I have 22 15ths, and I've got a pretty easy problem, right? Sometimes we even see it where one denominator actually goes fully into the other one. Like, so this case, what's the smallest number that 7 and 14 go into? I would say, well, it's 14. I don't even need to adjust the second one, right? I would say, how many 14ths do I have and how many 14ths do I have? Well, the right one's easy. It's already 10. No adjustment necessary, okay? Sometimes you need to adjust both fractions. Sometimes you only need to adjust one. And here I would say, well, I need to multiply 2 times 7, so I better multiply 2 times 3. I've got 6 and 10. That would be 16 14ths. And then we would go through and we would reduce that. You got to be careful about that. That reduces down to 8 sevenths, right? So that's doing it without numbers, or excuse me, without letters, only numbers. And that's something you could do in middle school. Let's talk then. Same process here, but we're going to be adding and subtracting things that have x in them. So for instance, whenever we have the like denominator and everything's the same, 7 over 4x and 3 over 4x, you know what? That's like having fourths and fourths. We can just straight add those together, and that's 10 over 4x. Okay? So in other words, that looked a lot like, hey, look, we had both 15 on the bottom of the fraction. Even if it looks more complicated, like x plus 6 and x plus 6, right? I don't need to do any adjustment. I know that my fraction is going to be out of how many x plus 6 that I have. And the top is simply going to be 2x minus 5. So that's pretty straightforward. The problem is, what do we do whenever it gets more complicated? And so the trick is to find the least common multiple. What is the smallest thing that 3 and 5 both go into? 15. 7 and 14 both go into 14. These are both 4x. Those are both x plus 6. But what if these were your denominators? Okay? What if these were your denominators? And so what I'm saying is what if we had a problem and I said this one's 4x squared minus 16 and this one is 6x squared minus 24x plus 24, and I said add those together, and I wanted to know the smallest thing that they went into. That's the key here. That's what we're doing in these problems. So in this, when it says find the least common multiple, here's what we're going to do. Step 1, factor them. Let's pull a 4 out of this. That looks like 4 times, that would leave me with x squared minus 4. Now I can go even further with this, because x squared minus 4 is x plus 2, x minus 2. Now let's go over to this one. So I have the factored form out of that, right? Okay, we're going to keep that in our back pocket for a minute. Over here, I see that a 6 can pull out of all those terms, so let's do that first. I'm left with x squared minus 4x plus 4. Then I need to look at this and I say, okay, now this term here, I need two numbers that add up to negative 4 multiplied to positive 4. That sounds like minus 2 minus 2. So this factors out to 6 times x minus 2 times x minus 2. We're going to take this, we're going to keep it in our back pocket, and let's compare those. What is this? So instead of comparing these versions, I'm going to say this. What's the smallest value that this and this both go into? Well, let's start with the 4 and the 6. 4 and the 6 both go into 12, right? So as far as the numbers go, 12 is the smallest number that it can go into. Then as far as expressions go, I need to make sure that I have everything accounted for here. Okay? So the smallest thing, I notice that I have an x plus 2, right? So in other words, if I was going to combine these together, I would need to multiply both sides over here, top and bottom, by an x plus 2 to get this piece right here involved with the right fraction. Over on the left-hand side, I have an x minus 2, and over on the right-hand side, I have an x minus 2, but you notice I actually have two of them here, right? And so the problem is, it's kind of like 7 goes into this one, and 14, 7 goes here, right? So you have it appearing multiple times. Well, hey, look, the problem here is that I actually need an x minus 2 to occur twice. These two mean that it needs to happen twice. I only have one x minus 2 over here, so I would have to multiply both top and bottom of the fraction by x minus 2 on the left. In other words, that's going to be my least common multiple. Now, that's a pretty complicated example. It's just a skill that we're going to practice, and we're going to have a couple problems, and I'm not going to give you anything nearly that complicated. In pre-calculus and college algebra, you get stuff that looks like this, okay? But since we have a short time together, I'm going to keep our problems pretty simple, but just understand that I'm looking for factoring first, and then I look for numbers, 4 and 6 going to 12. I need every single term to appear then after that. X plus 2 has to show up, x minus 2 has to show up, and because I have two of them in the same fraction, I need to have two of them show up in my denominator, okay? So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. We're going to take all those skills and we're going to apply them to start doing problems in the next video.